She hides her financial struggles from her family, but when her brother exposes her unpaid tuition publicly, she becomes the subject of ridicule. The twist: he did it to force her into a dangerous deal that benefits him. The first time I skipped dinner, I told my family I wasn't hungry. My mother smiled, proud of my discipline, and my brother chuckled, saying I had more willpower than anyone he knew. They didn't see the truth, that my stomach was twisting in knots, not from restraint but from emptiness. I had no money left for groceries that week, and I couldn't bear the thought of them knowing. I became skilled at hiding. I borrowed textbooks from classmates instead of buying them, claiming I liked sharing notes. I walked instead of taking the bus, pretending I enjoyed the exercise. I worked part-time jobs, late shifts at the library, weekend hours at a cafe, and told my family I was saving for extras, when in reality, every paycheck went toward tuition I still couldn't fully cover. My brother noticed my exhaustion. He'd catch me yawning at the dinner table or rubbing my temples during family visits. "You're pushing too hard," he'd say, offering rides or casual advice. His tone was light, but there was something sharp beneath it, something I couldn't quite name. I brushed it off, grateful for his concern, yet unsettled by the way his eyes lingered on me, as if he knew more than he let on. At family gatherings, I wore my mask well. I laughed at jokes, joined conversations, and smiled when my mother praised my focus. She told relatives I was the most disciplined of her children, always studying, always working. I nodded, swallowing the guilt that gnawed at me. If only she knew the truth, that my discipline was desperation, my silence a shield. One evening, after a long shift at the cafe, I returned home to find my brother in the living room, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, deliberate. "Opportunities," he said. "Leverage. She doesn't even realize how useful this is." I froze in the hallway, my heart pounding. Was he talking about me? His tone carried a confidence that unsettled me. I strained to hear more, but he ended the call quickly, slipping his phone into his pocket when he noticed me. "Long day?" he asked casually, smiling. I nodded, forcing a smile of my own. "Just tired." He studied me for a moment, then shrugged. "You'll figure it out." I dismissed the conversation, convincing myself it had nothing to do with me. But the word leverage echoed in my mind long after. The silence of my secret grew heavier with each passing day. I clung to hope, telling myself I'd find a way out. Maybe a scholarship would come through. Maybe extra shifts would cover the gap. I filled out applications late at night, my eyes burning from the glow of my laptop screen. I scribbled essays about resilience, about determination, about dreams I refused to abandon. But the weight never lifted. One night I sat at my desk, staring at a stack of unpaid bills. My hands trembled as I calculated the numbers, realizing I was further behind than I thought. My chest tightened and I pressed my palms against the table, willing myself not to cry. The next morning my brother offered me a ride to campus. I hesitated, then agreed. As we drove, he glanced at me. "You look pale," he said. "Are you eating?" I forced a laugh. "Of course. Just busy." He smirked as if he didn't believe me. "You should take better care of yourself. People notice when you're struggling." His words sent a chill down my spine. Did he know? Was he waiting for me to admit it? I turned to the window, watching the city blur past, and said nothing. At home I tried to distract myself. I cooked small meals, stretched leftovers, and told myself it was temporary. But every time my mother praised my discipline, the guilt deepened. Every time my brother offered casual advice, I felt the sharpness beneath his tone. One afternoon I bumped into a classmate at the library. She asked if I wanted to join a study group. I hesitated, worried they'd notice my borrowed books, but agreed. Sitting with them, I felt a flicker of normalcy. We laughed, shared notes, and for a moment I forgot the weight of my secret. But when the group ordered food afterward, I declined, claiming I had already eaten. My stomach growled, but I smiled, pretending. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The silence pressed down on me, heavier than ever. I thought about scholarships, extra shifts, even dropping out. None of it felt like enough. I remembered my brother's phone call, his words about opportunities and leverage. I wondered if he saw my struggle as something useful, something he could twist to his advantage. The thought unsettled me, but I pushed it away. Still the fear lingered. I clung to hope, but it was fragile. Each day felt like walking a tightrope, balancing lies and exhaustion. I told myself I could keep the secret, that no one would find out. But deep down I knew the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. And when it did come out, I feared it wouldn't just break me, it would change everything. The silence of my secret finally shattered at a family dinner. I remember the clinking of glasses, the laughter echoing around the table, and the warm smell of roasted chicken filling the room. For a moment I almost believed I was safe, that my exhaustion and hidden debts would remain mine alone. Then my brother cleared his throat. "She's been struggling with tuition," he announced, his voice carrying across the table like a verdict. "She hasn't paid in months." The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. My fork slipped from my hand, clattering against the plate. Every head turned toward me. My mother's smile froze, my aunt's eyebrows shot up, and my cousins exchanged quick, knowing glances. I tried to speak, but my throat tightened. My brother leaned back in his chair, feigning concern. I didn't want to say anything, but I couldn't keep it to myself. "She's drowning, and someone had to tell the truth." The room buzzed with whispers. My mother asked softly, "Is this true?" Her voice trembled, not with anger but with disappointment. I nodded faintly, unable to meet her eyes. The ridicule began subtly, relatives shaking their heads, friends avoiding my gaze, cousins whispering behind napkins. I felt stripped of dignity, exposed in a way I had never imagined. My brother's smirk betrayed him. He wasn't helping me. He was controlling me. The humiliation didn't end at dinner. It spread like wildfire. Neighbors began to gossip, their voices hushed but sharp. "She couldn't even pay her tuition," I overheard one say at the market. Classmates whispered in hallways, their eyes darting toward me before quickly looking away. Even professors seemed to treat me differently, their encouragement replaced with pity. Every glance carried the sting of shame. Walking across campus felt like walking through a storm of judgment. I kept my head down, clutching my books tightly, wishing I could disappear. At home the silence was worse. My mother avoided the subject, but her eyes carried disappointment. My father sighed often, shaking his head as if I had failed them. My brother, meanwhile, acted as though he had done me a favor. One evening I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed into his room, my voice trembling with anger. "Why did you do it? Why did you expose me like that?" He looked up from his laptop, calm and collected. "Because you needed help," he said smoothly. "You were hiding, pretending everything was fine. I had to make it clear to everyone." "That wasn't your choice," I snapped. "You humiliated me." He leaned back, folding his arms. "You should be grateful. Now you need me. And I can fix everything, if you agree to a deal." His words dripped with manipulation. "What deal?" I asked cautiously. He smiled, the kind of smile that carried no warmth. "I have a financial arrangement. It'll benefit me, but it'll keep you afloat. You sign and your problems disappear. Simple." My stomach churned. "So this was your plan all along? To expose me so I'd have no choice but to depend on you?" He shrugged. "Call it strategy. You were too stubborn to admit you needed help. I had to force your hand." I felt trapped, torn between survival and dignity. The deal was dangerous. I could sense it in the way he spoke, in the gleam of satisfaction in his eyes. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind replayed the dinner, the whispers, the smirk on his face. I thought about the neighbors, the classmates, the professors. I thought about the deal, the strings attached, the way he had cornered me. The next day I tried to focus on my studies, but the humiliation followed me everywhere. In the library, students glanced at me, their whispers sharp. At the cafe, a customer recognized me and muttered something under his breath. Even walking home I felt eyes on me, judging, mocking. I began to isolate myself. I skipped gatherings, avoided friends, and spent evenings alone in my room. The silence was suffocating, but it was better than the ridicule. One afternoon my mother knocked on my door. She sat beside me, her hands folded tightly. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked softly. I swallowed hard. I didn't want to burden anyone. She sighed, her eyes heavy with sadness. "You should have trusted us. But now your brother says he can help." Her words stung. Even she believed his narrative, that he was the savior, the fixer, the one in control. Later that week he cornered me again. "So, have you decided?" he asked, his tone casual but firm. I stared at him, my anger simmering beneath the surface. "You humiliated me. You made me a joke. And now you want me to sign away my dignity?" He smirked. It's survival. You'll thank me one day. I walked away, my heart pounding. The humiliation had broken me, but it had also revealed the truth. This wasn't about concern. It was about control. He had used my vulnerability as leverage, twisting my silence into his weapon. And now I had to decide, surrender to his deal or fight back. I walked away from his smirk that night with my heart pounding, my mind racing. The humiliation had cornered me, but it had also lit something inside me, a quiet fire that refused to die. I knew I couldn't let him win. Not like this. The first step was small. I bought a cheap notebook from the bookstore where I worked and began journaling. At first, the words came out messy, scattered, anger, shame, exhaustion. But as the pages filled, I started to see patterns. His timing, his words, the way he had exposed me, it wasn't random. It was calculated. Writing gave me clarity, and with each entry I felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself. I reached out to mentors I trusted. One was an old professor who had always believed in me. We met for coffee and I confessed everything. The unpaid tuition, the public humiliation, the deal my brother dangled in front of me. She listened quietly, her eyes steady. "You've been carrying this alone for too long," she said. "But you're stronger than you think. Don't let him define your story." Her words stayed with me. I began researching ways to fight back. Late nights were spent scrolling through articles, reading about financial rights, contracts, and manipulation tactics. I learned how people had reclaimed control after being cornered, how evidence could turn the tide. Each discovery felt like a weapon I was sharpening. Then came the breakthrough. While cleaning the guest room one evening, I found an envelope tucked inside a drawer. It contained printed emails, messages between my brother and a business partner. My name was mentioned repeatedly, not with care but as leverage. My tuition debt was described as useful pressure. My stomach twisted as I read, but my resolve hardened. I dug deeper. On his desk, I found contracts, drafts of financial arrangements that listed me as a co-signer, even though I had never agreed. He had been preparing to trap me long before the dinner humiliation. Each discovery fueled my determination. I wasn't imagining it. He had planned this. And now I had proof. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. He walked into the living room one evening, confident as ever. "Have you thought about the deal?" he asked, his tone casual, as if we were discussing weekend plans. I stood, holding the envelope of emails in my hand. "I don't need your deal," I said firmly. "I know what you did. I know how you used me." His smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" I laid the papers on the table. "This. All of it. You exposed me to force me into this arrangement. You betrayed me. And now I'll never trust you again." For the first time he was silent. No excuses, no smirk, no charm. Just silence. And in that silence I found victory. From that moment I began rebuilding my life with purpose. I applied for grants, pouring my heart into essays about resilience and determination. I reached out to organizations that supported students in financial crisis. Slowly, opportunities began to appear. I reconnected with supportive people, friends who had drifted away during the ridicule, mentors who reminded me of my worth. Their encouragement became a lifeline. Each conversation, each gesture of kindness chipped away at the shame my brother had tried to cement around me. The ridicule began to fade. Neighbors who once whispered now nodded politely. Classmates who had avoided me started asking for help with assignments. Even professors began to treat me with respect again, impressed by my persistence. One afternoon, I received an email confirming a grant approval. I stared at the screen, tears welling in my eyes, not of sadness but of relief. I had done this. Without him. Without his deal. I celebrated quietly, cooking myself a simple dinner and lighting the lamp in my room. The glow felt different that night. Warmer, stronger, like a symbol of the life I was reclaiming. Weeks later, I passed my brother in the hallway. He looked at me, searching for weakness but found none. I walked past him with my head high, my silence louder than any words. In the end, I learned something I hadn't expected. Betrayal can break you, yes. Can strip you of dignity, leave you exposed and humiliated. But it can also sharpen you. Can teach you to stand taller, to fight harder, to reclaim what was stolen. My brother may have stolen my dignity for a moment, but he didn't get my future. That I reclaimed myself. And as I closed my journal one evening, I wrote the final line. He underestimated me. but I will never underestimate myself again.